Harry's Wife, part 100.1. Arsewipes. Number 1. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, and welcome to the resumption of my many videos. And it's quite fitting that given my return, we start with Harry's Wife at part 100.1. And also, of course, as there has been the memorable, monumental, finally the appearance of some work from Harry's Wife on Spotify through the recent Archetypes, or, as is better known, Arsewipes, broadcast that came out recently. As you know, I've been dealing with a little bit of a bump with regard to this channel as of late, and therefore this has prevented me from uploading videos on my normal prodigious basis, so there's much for me to catch up upon. Not least, of course, the recent broadcast by Harry's Wife on Spotify. And it behooves numerous comment explaining much about it by reference to the prism of narcissism. But let's begin by the suggestion, of course, that this broadcast of hers, which shows her earnestly in the marketing literature wearing a white singlet, staring out at you all, beseeching you to listen to her syrupy Californian tones, but apparently it reached the number 1 spot on Spotify. Yes, it seemingly displaced none other than Joe Rogan, king of the podcasts, from the top spot. Now, first of all, as you know, there was a bit of a problem with this channel just recently, and it's now come to light that the real reason my channel went off air for a short period of time was it was rendered into a comatose state as a consequence of having the misfortune to listen to Harry's Wife's broadcast. But we have this news. Yes, this news that apparently it was number 1. That it was the most listened to podcast on Spotify. And in other news, pigs have been seen flying over London. A pot of gold was found at the end of a rainbow in Crieff in Scotland. A unicorn won the Grand National race. Fairies have been filmed tidying a grandmother's living room in Flagstaff, Arizona. Adolf Hitler did indeed escape in a submarine to Argentina. Walt Disney remains cryogenically frozen, ready to reappear at a moment's notice to continue running his empire. So, consequently, all of those are genuine and clearly true headlines, which fit quite neatly with the news that apparently Harry's Wife is number 1. Was it really the most listened to? I'm going to, of course, in other videos, dive into its content and what people have to say about it, and of course, as always, link this through the examination of it with regard to the prism of narcissism. But the very first point of it being heralded at being number 1 raises interesting questions. It may well, of course, be number 1 for the following reason, that it ended up being endorsed by the Worldwide Insomniac Society, and that it was taken up by Mumsnet as a brilliant recommendation when played on a low volume to act as background noise to send babies to sleep. Apparently, it's also been used by millions of households in tropical areas, for the droning noise that has been created by this podcast apparently repels mosquitoes. Also, it's been commandeered by totalitarian dictatorships across the world, as when played at full volume it can be used as a torture device. And also, people have realised that if it's set up to play automatically at high volume when an intruder is detected on residential or commercial premises, any such intruder will immediately retreat, running screaming from the noise, their ears bleeding. So with all of that, that would perhaps support the fact that it is number 1. It's been reported as such, but quite frankly, I don't believe that. Why? Well, who would actually be listening to this? Well, there'll be some people whose job it is to review it. There will be the idly curious, thinking in the same way that you rub a neck at an accident on a road, that you want to look at what this train wreck will provide. And of course there'll be the sugars, hardly the large army that they believe themselves to be. But nevertheless, some of them do exist, and Harry's wife has her supporters. So there'll be those that have tuned in, some because they support her, many because they're just fascinated to learn what utter nonsense that she'll be providing. And in the circumstances, that will have, of course, driven the numbers upwards. But for her to surpass Joe Rogan, I find difficult to believe. Now, remember, of course, Spotify has invested several millions in Harry's wife, the purveyor of the beige, the bringer of the industrial beige, someone who speaks in Magnolia, boring, vapid, uninteresting, somebody who never has anything of real consequence to state, and indeed only gets by regurgitating what other people have stated before her, commensurate with the character trait acquisition that her narcissism engages in. Joe Rogan is interesting. He has interesting guests. He has a huge following. So I don't really think that he has been surpassed, but rather Spotify thinking, for fuck's sake, we've signed up a complete lemon here. We're going to have to do something about this to make people think that it's really good. And if they think it's number one, they might go, okay, I'll have a listen to it. Because, of course, it's similar to products on Amazon. Many people, when they see a product has got lots of reviews and endorsements, think, I'll go with that, rather than doing their own research, rather than thinking, well, I'll look at a comparison of these products and make a determination on what I see, what has been written about it, what the product description is, and what my needs are, before I actually decide to make a purchase and part with my hard-earned wonga. Invariably, people are swayed by numbers, and Spotify will know this. And therefore, it seems to me that they need to recoup the money with regard to Harry's wife. They need to make her work, both in terms of actually getting her to do some bastard work, because she's been sat with her thumb up her backside for the last, I don't know how many days it's been since this deal was signed up, and of course, in order to make it popular, or at least to give it the appearance of being popular, so that more people are drawn to it. While she has her supporters, I do not believe that they would be so numerous as to propel her to the number one spot, and moreover to surpass the likes of Joe Rogan. And I think this is an act of propaganda that has been undertaken by Spotify in order to make her seem more popular than she is. Of course, she will go along with this because she believes that she's hugely popular. She believes that she's important. She believes that everybody wants to listen to what she has to say. And as I've mentioned in forthcoming videos, very soon we'll be diving into some of that content and analysing and finding out what was actually said and what all of that actually means vis-a-vis narcissism. But here, her narcissism needed this to succeed. And whilst I don't think that there was a diktat from her to Spotify to say, make this popular in terms of massaging the figures, I think Spotify have done that of their own volition to try and save this lame duck that they've signed up, this lemon of a presenter of podcasts. She, of course, will fully embrace this. She will believe that she is the best. She will believe that she's number one. And the unfortunate thing is this will feed her narcissism by causing her to believe, see, I am popular. All those haters are wrong. Her narcissism won't tell her, well, actually, many of the people that have tuned in have done so really to mock you and laugh at the bilge that you've generated. Many of the people that have come to listen to you have done so because all they want to do is take the piss out of you. It's a little bit like turning up at a freak show. Her narcissism won't tell her that. It will say, number one, that means millions of people want to listen to me, millions of people adore me, millions of people think I'm wonderful. That will provide her with a large amount of fuel from all of these tertiary sources. She'll believe that it's positive fuel. It demonstrates these people are under control. And therefore, that will make her feel mighty powerful. Of course, and we'll be seeing in future videos, there are people who've got a different view about the content of it, including your glorious narrator, but more of that in due course. For now, the fact is, I believe that these figures have been massaged in order to make this lame duck appear not as lame as it actually is, and to squeeze some juice out of the lemon. And this, of course, panders to Harry's wife's need for control. It suggests that she has that control, and it provides her with fuel. She already has the residual benefit of the money that has been paid, or the part payment. And unfortunately, this is going to encourage her to pump out more of this dross. And dross it is. Utterly banal marshmallow nonsense for the mind. But the early starting observation is to demonstrate that there is no way that this naturally got to number one in itself, and it hasn't done so on the basis of people being genuinely interested in it. More people will be watching and listening to this for the sheer ridiculousness of the content, as opposed to actually lauding what has been said. Will Harry's wife care? The short answer is no, because her own deluded mind will tell her that everybody's tuned in to listen to her because she's so hugely important, and that she's a bananitarian colossus straddling the world, dispensing such meaningful information and advice that the world wants to listen. And that's why it remains incumbent for people to express their own views about this content, expressing their opinion based upon what they hear. Nothing to do with hating, nothing to do with prejudice, but simple objective criticism. But for now, whilst we don't accept that this is a genuine number one achievement, that's not going to matter in the deluded world of Harry's wife. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.